Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi. That's right, I decided it was time to take an on screen persona. And it's that time again. It's midweek, and I want you to play some magic so you can win 2 free rare or better ICRs. This week's Midweek Magic, we're going to continue our discussion of mono blue tempo in Historic with adding a few choice uncommons to our existing popper list, creating a Historic Artisan version. Once again, we are going to primarily limit ourselves to 1 copy on each card. That way, you have a way to try things out, see what works for you, what doesn't. Although there are a few cards here that I think more than one may be called for. So stay tuned. But before we get into all that, my crack research team has recently pointed out that we are the only channel doing consistent and timely midweek magic content. And by crack team, of course, I mean one comment from someone who had nothing at all to do with this monkey image. So be sure to subscribe right here at the Planeswalker Stronghold for all of your future midweek magic needs, because we will be bringing you a deck list or strategy every single week. Now, what were we talking about this week? Oh, yeah, right. All right, so let's take a few minutes and talk about mono blue Artisan tempo. And again, basically what we did here was took the popper version of the deck and added in some uncommons that I think are going to do versatile things for you. And as you can see, it's about half and half, commons and uncommons at this point. This column right here is things you probably may have invested wild cards into, because there really wasn't much other way of getting it unless you were just on Arena at the right time when those things were standard available. But about half of these were never available in standard. These commons, on the other hand, were various things that are either now standard legal, or in the case of Opt, you can get that with code Superscribe. That's the code. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out the comprehensive codes video on my feed. You owe it to yourself. But now let's talk about uncommons, and I'm going to start with the ones that are available in standard. Fairy Vandal makes a very nice build-around version of mono blue tempo, although this version was from an earlier edition. Fairy Vandal is currently available in standard, so you may already have 4 of these, or certainly could draft your way into more of them over time. The other card that I think is worth looking at is Geist Light Snare. This is basically a counterspell that is built around the spirit creature type that really has the potential to be the basis of a solid tribal historic deck. Or even a deck over in Explorer. You probably already have these, or could add them to your shopping list next time you draft, Crimson Vow? So there you go. Now, let's talk about some uncommons that you may wish to add to your collection and why those things are important. Curious Obsession is the only uncommon wildcard that I would say go ahead and invest in 4 copies right up front. I could make a really long-winded and solid argument about why this is one of the best, if not the best, build-around uncommons on Arena. This will go basically in every blue historic deck that also runs creatures. It's that good. It provides that much card advantage. Just play it or play against it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Spectral Sailor is a nice addition potentially for this deck. It was in standard not that long ago, and it's been reprinted at least once, I think. So it's very easy to come by. And you're talking about a spirit, and we talked about that being a relevant creature type on blue and historic and the explorer format. It's flying, so it's evasive. It'll go in your blue-white flyers deck. It'll go in spirits or pirates if you happen to end up wanting to run pirates. It also has flash, which is relevant for some reasons we will talk about during our next card. And it's also a way to draw cards for mana, which of course perks things like Fairy Vandal. From there, we've got a Brineborn Cutthroat. This guy also a pirate, but possibly more importantly, a merfolk. Merfolk is one of the key budget historic decks running around out there. This little bad boy has flash, and he likes it when you cast spells on your opponent's turn. In fact, he gets all pumped up from it. Put a +1/+1 counter on it whenever you cast a spell during your opponent's turn. Please note the wording there. Cast the spell. It doesn't have to resolve. It doesn't have to enter the battlefield. Just when you cast it, it procs. So this guy gets really big really fast. And in fact, in some versions of Mono Blue Tempo, you will see 4 copies of this, and really 2 is not unusual at almost any level. Departed Deckhand, another spirit and pirate. He's difficult to block because he can only be blocked by other spirits, or I may be confusing my pronouns now that I'm looking more closely at the artwork. Perhaps she is more appropriate. But a 2/2 for 2 here is a very above rate. You can tap 4. Another target creature you control cannot be blocked this turn except by spirits, so it can lend that capability. Also be aware though that if it becomes a target of a spell, sacrifice it. And that's spell, not ability. I've seen a lot of people mess that up, and to my benefit. Another card which may not necessarily fit in this build super well. In fact, to be honest, I would leave it out here. But this is a card that goes very nicely in your Blue-White Skies deck, and several other potential others. 2 mana for an enchantment. Creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. And I tell you what, I am cutting that from the list right now because I just don't think it fits quite as well as we want it to. One of the few absolute, if you're going to play blue in Eternal formats, cards that I think you need to have is Jawari Disruption. It is basically a negate that is staple to a land, and this should go in every blue deck you ever play. From there, we've got a counter spell that is a little more situational, but fits kind of nicely into this deck because it tends to pump up our creatures. Counter target spell, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature you control. This isn't essential, but it's a nice one-up to have in your collection for those blue brawl decks, your various blue lists, and a lot of people don't see it coming, as opposed to the spell saw it coming. I still have nightmares about that right now. Merfolk Trickster, a 2/2, 2 relevant creature types with both Merfolk and Wizard. It's a 2/2 with flash, so you can cast this very effectively on your opponent's turn, much the way you could the Spectral Sailor to pump your Brinehorn Cutthroats. Very, very good card. And when it ETBs, tap a creature, it loses all abilities until end of turn. So if they were counting on being able to block or pump the team or draw cards or something like that, this just very quickly takes that out. And these kind of instant flash effects, of course, are best used right as your opponent says go, and just before it becomes your turn, because they have essentially little to no opportunity to deal with the changes that you make to the board state. Exclusion Mage, a wizard, also a human, but not particularly relevant. 3 mana, 2/2. When it ETBs, return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So even though this doesn't have flash, it does immediately affect the board state as it's coming in. So if you weren't able to lock down a creature by tapping it and taking away all its abilities at the end of your turn, you might be able to bounce it back to their hand with Exclusion Mage, and mess up the timing on whatever tricks they want it to do, or taking it out of a blocking equation. So one of those non-flash creatures that does affect the board state as soon as it comes into play. Last card to talk about here is a Wizard Payoff. We didn't talk about wizards too terribly much in this particular one, but as we said, Exclusion Mage definitely is one. Fairy Vandal's a rogue. Their Fairy Seer is a wizard. So you got a wizard, Harry. We got a bunch of ninjas too. Ninjas are always cool. I try and hang with the ninjas as much as I can. But anyway, Wizard's Retort is a strictly better cancel if you happen to have wizards, because the cost goes from being a hard counter for 1 and 2 blue just to the 2 blue. So your cancel basically becomes a counter spell. And boy, let me tell you, when Arena first hit and there was only 2 sets in Standard and that's all that was on Arena, this card was everywhere. Blue-red Wizards was one of the budget decks to beat, and this card and the red counters part of this that turns your a 3 damage direct or 3 mana direct damage spell for 3. It costs 2 in red, but if you control the wizard, it costs 2 less, so it was Lightning Bolt. And let me tell you, that was a sick deck. We'll have to put that up for Historic at some point if I haven't already. So we cut a card here, and I think the one to add in, Brineborn Cutthroat, is a great one. If you wanted to run something in the commons that you already have, or maybe some of the cards that we cut that are more standard accessible, I would not hate if you just wanted to do 1 copy of Brineborn Cutthroat to start off with. But once you see how good it is, I don't think you're going to regret having 2 copies. So there's the deck, guys. Hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. And having realized that I went through and did a complete deck tech and never really talked about the play lines that you're looking for, I am going to do a quick beat up session with Sparky here. This is exactly what you're looking for, or very closely. I wish I had some way to protect the combo in my hand, but the opponent goes first, so we get a couple draws before it becomes relevant. We've got 2 mana sources, we've got an unblockable creature, and we've got Curious Obsession, so let's take it for a spin here. And just like this, we're going to do the thing. Obviously, I don't really have to worry about protection too much against Sparky because, it's Sparky. But we're going to get in here with our Curious Obsession. One thing about Curious Obsession is you can't hold that creature back. It has to swing every turn or you lose the Curious Obsession. So make sure to stay aggressive. And as I do with many of the recent midweek magics, if this video gets just 10 thumbs up likes by 8 p.m. on the Tuesday that it's released, I will be live playing this event over on my new Twitch channel. We'll be testing out the deck, see how it works, and maybe even do some on-the-fly tweaks there. So smash the like button and tune in. What's that? You didn't catch all that? Well, Matt would like you to know that any deck list applicable to this video can be found down in the doobly-doo.
And hey, let's not forget, the whole reason to participate in these totally free midweek Magic events is the prize support is awesome. You get a rare for your first and second win, and then you get a random cosmetic for your third. How awesome is that? Alright, so with all that having been said, don't forget, smash the like button like Hulk would. And of course, comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And one last thing, myself, I'm coming to you from America, and I have noticed that about 1/3 of my viewership is coming from the US, and about 1/3 is coming from various countries. And there's about 1/3 of my viewership that is just getting lumped into other. So to let me know you got to the end of the video, throw me a comment down in there and let me know where you are watching from.